Hello, everyone. My name is Lucas Ryman, and I'm going to be talking today with Hanna Volbeda. Correct? I pronounced
That's
that
perfect.
correctly? Okay,
Yes, really
perfect.
well.
And I have been the whole day trying to figure out how to perfectly pronounce bricular. Is it bricular?
I say bricoleur. It's a French word,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. My French is not so good, so we're
It's
kind of
fine.
uh, I kind of wanted you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and then kind of talk about, a little bit about a background on the film that you entered into this year's Interrobang Film Festival.
Sure. So my name is Hanna Volbeda, and I'm the director of Bricoleur. And Bricoleur is a documentary about artists in the United States. I am not American myself. I'm half French, half Dutch,
Yep.
hence the French title of the film. And the film is about artists in the United States, and they are artists who make huge installations that are out in the open space. So it can be in the city or in the desert or in the forest. And it's just a huge landscape, huge installation that's made with whatever the artist could find. So maybe tires, maybe broken glass, maybe anything they could use, they used it. And they made very beautiful art, and I wanted to make a film about that to show what they have done.
So it's kind of almost like a 3D kind of collage, essentially.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So I
exactly.
think I love it. It's bricolage. Is that how you say it? Bricolage.
Yes, bricolage, very good.
Um, how did you
Yeah,
first come across this? I've seen it sometimes just as I'm driving through the country, there's just
yeah,
random people that will have it just using bottles or whatever they can, and they make these kind of, whether it's
yeah.
in trees or whether it's on its own freestanding kind of installation. What kind of when did you first kind of encounter that type of art?
Yeah. Well, the first one I saw was in France because I grew up in France, and not too far from the house where I grew up, there was a very big castle made by a mailman, but this is like 100 years ago. And so he was a mailman, and he picked up stones on his during his route, many stones, and he was sending these postcards to people, and there were postcards from India, from Africa, and he never got to travel, so he never actually went there, but he just looked at the pictures. And then he just decided to build something in his garden with these stones. And so it was a big castle, a very strange constructions, but I loved it. And I went there several times, and I was just so curious about, but how did he do it, and where did he get his ideas? And but this was a very long time ago, so of course now he's deceased, and I it's not possible to meet him anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are many places like this in the United States. And then
Mhm.
I just Googled it, and I found Salvation Mountain in the desert in California. And then I just wanted to go there. And then I did more research. And then the first artist I met in the film, he is in Philadelphia, Isaiah Zagar, and he told us about many more places to go, and it all went like this. So we filmed for 5 weeks, and it was one time people told us, yeah, you should go there, and then we just called people,
So
looked it up, and
you had one contact to begin with, like someone that you
yes,
reached out to, and then as you went, you just kept getting
exactly,
recommended more and more people. That's so I didn't
exactly.
know that. I thought that was all like premeditated, like, okay, we found 5 artists. It was kind of
No.
one, and then okay, like personal Yelp reviews, just constantly going from one to the next and being like, who would you recommend? Who do you
Yes, exactly. Yes, and we had 5 weeks, and we flew to New York, and then we had to leave from LA 5 weeks after that. So we had 5 weeks, and it had to fit in our route somehow. So that
Yeah,
was like a kind of limit because there are many more people we could have met. I mean, that's
yeah.
something I learned while filming, is that we were really frustrated because we had to keep on going, and there were so many places to see. Yeah.
How long would you stay with each person?
It was just mostly half a day. So
Really?
yes, yes.
So the
Some
5 weeks was just kind of traveling along with filming, or was there some other stops along the way of like other things you had to do?
No, no, it was mostly, yeah, traveling, filming. Yeah,
Okay, nice.
because we would stay with the artist, we would stay half a day, but then we had another half a day to film the location, to film
Mhm.
the surroundings also. And sometimes we would be able to go back to see the artist another day, the day after. That was the most perfect situation, but that didn't happen that often because we had to keep
Yeah.
going. But the whole focus of the journey was the film in the end. Yeah.
How many did you only end up seeing 5 artists, or did you see more than that?
No, we saw more, and some of them are in the film also, but just a portrait of them, not the interview,
Mhm.
because I think I had something like, I don't remember exactly, but more than 10 interviews, maybe 12,
Oh,
something like
wow.
that. Yeah. And in the first editing I did, I put them all in, but
Mhm.
then it was difficult to make a story of the film because all these separate stories were very interesting as a separate story, but to make one film, that was very difficult. So it was a very difficult process, but I had to make selections, and I tried to choose artists that were had a different universe and different materials, and also different part of the United States, that you see the desert and the forest and the big cities and
So you kind of try to find a way to tell a story within each of their stories, of trying to
yes.
capture the whole idea of this art form in as basic as you can without being overly complicated.
Yes, exactly,
It
exactly.
was probably very difficult to kind of pick and choose which ones are like, all right, which flows next, which fits best into the next part of the narrative.
Yes, exactly. That was very difficult, and I mean, everybody is very different, of course, and the art is very different. So it was very difficult to find a way to make it one story without losing the yeah, everyone's like special story and background. And
What was that process like for you, kind of, I guess, creatively and constructively, of how you kind of went through that mental process of figuring out how do you want this overall story to flow within each little story? Was that something that just kind of
mm,
came as you edited, or was it something you kind of had in mind from the start?
I didn't have it in mind from the start. And that's also because we filmed, we had a lot of improvisation during filming, because we didn't do a lot of research in the beginning, because everything went
And everything, you
just,
just went from one
yeah,
to the next to the next.
exactly, exactly. And while filming, I was already thinking like, okay, oh, that sounds like something he said, or that sounds like something she said. So I was already like making kind of
Little
story.
connections. Yeah.
Yes, but it wasn't. Yeah, most of it was in the editing, and that was difficult. So first, I edited the whole journey like chronologically. So from first person, then the second, then the third,
Mhm.
and then so that wasn't working as a film.
How long was that film? How long was that
Yeah. Oh, I
film?
think. Oh, that's a good
Put
question.
it
I
down
think.
to, if it's 5 and it's still about an hour and 10 minutes, and that's with
Yeah.
like heavy story editing overall. But that
Yeah.
first raw cut must have just been so daunting to look at and be like, okay, now
Yes.
where do I go?
I think it was 3 hours, but I don't
Oh,
remember for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to get me a special cut of that. That's
Okay,
all
sure.
3 hours. I would love to watch all 3 hours.
I'll do that.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so I was doing the editing myself also, and I just showed the film to my husband is also the producer of the film, so we were talking about it a lot, and then we showed it to more people, and just talking about it helped have a more a frame that's a bit more
Mhm.
focused and
Yep.
more to a story. Yeah.
Going back a little bit, what was kind of your draw to directing and kind of working in a medium like film? Where
Why
did you
it
kind
is
of where did you kind of get your start, kind of say?
as a director.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or just in film in general. Like, did you grow up making short films with your friends? I know a lot of people that I grew up with and are
Yeah.
film, like work in film now, they just had always been had a camera or had like were making fun little
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it was a bit different. I wanted to work in journalism when I was a student, and then I don't know. It's just, it wasn't the right medium for me. It was just I worked at a radio station first, and I did the news in France, but it was just going really fast, and I didn't really have
Hmm.
time to understand why people do what they're doing. And it was just not a right fit for me. And so then I did a master study, and that was about video making.
Okay.
And then I started to make short documentaries. And then first I worked for a festival also, but as a producer, so not as a director.
Mhm.
And this is my first film actually. And it took me, that was always my dream to do
Yes.
this, but it took me a lot of time to, yeah, to have the focus and to just keep at it. And yeah, it's quite difficult because
Yeah. No.
there's no, you don't earn much money and you need to eat and you need time. And so yeah, that's
Yeah. How was that overall for you? Like your first time kind of from beginning to end being someone kind of in charge of how this is going to look. How was that experience for you? Was it liberating or was it
I really loved it.
good?
Really loved it. Yeah. And really, when we were in the US filming, I really felt like, oh, this is it. This is what I always wanted to do and never had the time or the energy or the focus to do. And I really loved it. And I loved every second of it. Filming and editing, and now the festival part and showing the film. Really amazing. Yeah.
Good. No, it's always so interesting to hear when people get that first kind of film out there and they get the feedback from
Yeah.
it. I always like hearing like how people react to it and how much they have enjoyed it or the
Yeah.
process was strength. There's just so many different emotions that go
Yeah.
through the making of a film.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you're kind of working on at the moment, or kind of in the works?
I'm in a very early stage of a new film idea, so it's a bit early to
No worries.
say a lot
No
about
worries.
it. But it's something with the environment and nature in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is very artificial, you know.
Okay.
Everything is we have a lot of farms and things, but everything is made by man. And I'm
Mhm.
interested in the wild nature.
Mm. And is that kind of something that has always intrigued you, kind of the environment and nature? Do you feel like that's
Yes.
something that you're really drawn to in terms of filmmaking and directing?
Yes, definitely. So I grew up in the countryside in France, and there it's very different. I grew up in the Alps, so it's a
Okay, yeah, that's much
very
different.
different
That's
landscape.
a little different than the Netherlands. A little bit.
Exactly. And yeah, for me that's just how the I don't know. I love it, and for me it's very important to save that and
Mm.
to protect it. And yeah, so that's really in my DNA. It really feels like that. Yeah.
That's part of you and kind of where
Yeah.
you kind of, is that somewhere you see yourself kind of ending up back in France in the Alps?
Maybe, but now I'm married to a Dutch man and I have a daughter here. So it's yeah, I also feel at home in the Netherlands, but
Good.
there are other things here that are really nice. But
Yes,
yeah,
good.
maybe we'll end up
Maybe.
in a farm.
We'll never know. I think a lot of people, me included, sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Let's just buy a bunch of land and on a
Yeah,
farm and just get away from everything and just go there
exactly.
for a while or forever. That's cool too.
Exactly. Just be in nature and grow your own vegetables.
Yes, yes. Um, what
Yeah.
kind of films have you been watching during? Obviously, everyone's gone through their own version of quarantine or kind of
Yeah.
dealing with all this. What have kind of been some films you've been watching that have kind of kept you kind of focused and creatively charged?
Hmm. That's a good question. Unfortunately, my quarantine was not as artistic because I have a little daughter with me at
Mhm.
home, and so I was a lot with my daughter. She's 2 years old, and
Oh, that's fun.
so, but that was really nice too. But unfortunately, I had a bit less time to watch films that I usually have.
Yes.
But there's one director that I really love, and I had some time to watch her films, and she's called Agnès Varda. She's a French director. Maybe you know her.
I don't think I'm not as well versed in cinema as the other people in my and like Christian. Christian would probably know who you're talking about.
Yeah, if you have time, if you still have free time, just watch it. Agnès Varda is really amazing, really beautiful, and the film I watched was The Gleaners and I. And she goes to, it's in France, and it's about these people who, when you take the potato crops, and there are some left because they cannot sell them in shops when they're too big or too small. I don't know if you know about that, but they no. Anyway, they cannot sell everything, so they just leave it there, and then people come take it.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would just rot and
it would just spoil. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and she films these people in the countryside and also in the city, the people who take the garbage and look at the garbage if there's something to eat. And but the way she films the people is very beautiful and really.
No, I'll have to take a look at some of her films. Those sound really.
And she includes a lot of art also in her films. So
good. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down with me today. I really enjoyed talking with you, and it was a lot of fun.
Me too. Thank you so much for your time, also, and for your interest. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you all for tuning in.